Hi everyone, this video is part 4 of our second outline, which is basics with R. So in this video we will learn about a new data structure that is called list. So let's get started. First of all, we will see what is the definition of a list. Then we will see how we can create a list. Then we will perform some built-in functions for lists. Next, we will see how we can access the elements or the items inside a list. Then we will see how we can change the items in a list. So first of all, let's get familiar with this term of list. So lists are actually objects that can contain a variety of components, including matrices, vectors, strings, numbers, and more lists. One may say that a list is a superdata type that allows for the storage of any sort of data in an organized manner, while also allowing for changes to be done. Now let's see how we can create a list. So actually, to construct a list, you have to use the function list. The syntax for creating a list is below. So first of all, we have to say the function list, then we have to pass down the components inside the list function. And these items are in fact the components that refers to the data types such as vectors, matrices, strings, and so on. Now let's move to RStudio and create our first list. All right, first of all, let's say we have a list 1, and then I use the function of list to create a list. For instance, this list has a vector, let's say the values from 1 to 6, and then I have a matrix, let's say it has values from 1 to 4, and rows as 2, and I have a character ABC, and I have a number, let's say 55. All right, now I will say print list 1. Let's run it. Okay, that seems good. Here you can see that first of all, you had a vector inside your list, then you had a matrix, and then a character, and in the last, you have an integer. So this is how you basically create a list. Let's get back to slides. How to give names to components. One can also give names to the components of the list by using the following syntax. Let's say it. So first of all, you have to use the list function, and then you have to pass the names, and then the component. Let's implement. All right. So this time, let's say I create another list, list 2. I'll use the function list, and I have a vector that contains value from 1 to 4, and ABC, a character, and let's say another character, XYZ, and an integer 5. Okay, so this time I will pass the name. So let's say, first of all, I decided to put a vector. So I say vec equals to this vector. And similarly, for character, let's say I pass my character equals to, and I also want to give a name to XYZ, which should be my character 2. And for the integer, I say my integer equals to. So by choosing the equal operator, you can assign the names. Now let's print it. Let's print list 2. I will run this chunk of code. See, The names have been given to your list according to your own desire. Let's get back to slides. Let's say if you forget to name the components of your list and now you want to name them after you have already created a list, then simply use the names function to fulfill your objective. The syntax is by using the names function and passing a vector into it. Let's do it. Let's say I create list free, list function name. All right. Let's say I created a vector from 1 to 4 and a character ABC, and I forgot to put the names. All right. List free. Now, let's say I want to give the names. So I can do the same thing. First of all, I will call the names function just like I did with vectors. Now, I want to give names to my list 3. And what names I want to give is my vector 1 and my character 1. Okay. Now let's print list 3 once again to see the difference. All right. See, my vector 1 and my character 1 are the names that have been given to your list. Now let's see that what built-in functions for lists we can use. First of all is.list that is used to ensure if the data structure is a list. All right, I'll say print is.list to make sure if list 3 is a list. So it should be true, as you can see here. But what if I create something and I name it as, let's say, list 5, and I use the combine function, and I simply say values from 1 to 4. And this time I say print is.list, and I pass the list 5. So it should give false as I haven't used the list function. Next, we have length function. This function is used to know the number of items or components in a list. You know that earlier I had a list 3, and I say print the length of list 3 because I want to see that how many components or items are inside it. So list 3 has actually one component or one item inside it. Let's get back to slides. Now here we have one more function that is str, which is used to show the structure of a list. I had a list. Sorry, I had to use list 3 above here. All right, so it should be 2 as my list contains 2 items inside it. Okay, so it's 2. Sorry for the mistake. Now we were talking about the structure function, which we use by saying str, and then I pass list, let's say list 1. All right. Okay, so here is the collapsed structure at one place. It contains 4 items inside it. We can also use combine function for joining 2 lists. Let's say we want to join the list 3 and list 2. So I say create a new list, and by using the combine function, I say you can join list 2 and list 3. and then I print new list. Okay, let's run it. The list tree has been added to the list too. Now let's move to slides. In the last, we have a function of unlist, which is used to convert a list into a vector. Let's say I want my list to new list to, and I want to unlist my list to, as I have stored it in new list to, which should be a vector. Let's say new list to and run it. So you can see there that it has been converted into a vector. Let me use the function of is.list to be sure about this. Is.list. All right, new list to. Okay, it should be false. All right. So now the question is that how you can assess list elements. A list can be made of several data structures as you have seen, and hence, in order to assess a list elements, you can pass the index of the component you want to change inside the bracket. You have to remember that by using only the bracket will subset a list, but by using the double brackets, you can subset the components. You can also use the $sign instead of double brackets. So the syntax is in front of you. Now, one important thing to consider here is that if your list has been given names to the components, they can also be used or assessed using the names inside the brackets. You know that at first I had created a list one. Okay, list one had 4 components. Now let's say I want to assess the second element or component of list one, which is a matrix. All right, I want to assess the second element, which should be 1, 2, 3, and 4, a matrix. Here you can see, let's say I want to assess the elements by name. First of all, you had a list 2, which had names. I want to assess my character too. So definitely I will say print list 2. All right. And then go inside list 2 and bring me the component with the name of my character 2. And it should be XYZ. But let's say, what if you want to assess the elements inside a component? Let's say you have list 1, all right? You have a vector here that contains 6 elements. Now, in the first component, you want to assess the second element too. So how we are going to do this? All right, so that's very simple. You have to say list 1, and then use the double brackets and say, go inside the first component and then brackets again and bring me the second component. All right, as you can see here that you have got 2. Now, what if you want to change the items inside a list? We can add, delete, and update specified elements of a list simply by referring to the index. Now, first of all, we will see how we can add an item. So that's quite simple. All you have to do is to use the append function to add an item to the list. It adds the item at the last index by default. However, if you want to add after your own specified place, then just pass the index value to after parameter. Let's do some implementation to see how it works. All right. Let's say I had a list print list 3. Okay, so list 3 contains two components, my vec1 and my character1. Now this time I'm gonna append, all right, append into list 3. And what I want to append is another new character, which is XYZ. All right. And let's try to give it a name. I'm not sure if we can do it this way. My new character. Okay. Now I will print list 3 to see the changes. Oh yeah, so I have to remove this. Okay, so it works fine. So you can see here that XYZ has been added to the list tree. Let's say I want to add another element in list tree. I want to add, let's say, LMN, but I want to add it after, let's say, the first component, and let's run. Okay, so LMN has been added after the first component. So this is how you can append or add items inside a list. There is another way of doing it, which is actually by referring to the index. I want to add something into my list 3. And what I want to add is, let's say, AAA to the last index of list 3, which is most probably 4. And let's print list 3 to see the changes. AAA has been added. All right, now let's get back to slides. You might be wondering that how we can remove it. That's quite simple. All you have to do is to just use the null keyword or minus operator enclosed in brackets. Let's say I print list 1. Okay, so here I had list 1. Now I want to move the last element, which is at the 4th index. I say list 1 in brackets, and I want to remove the item on the 4th index, and I will use the keyword of null. Then I will print list 1. Okay, so this time you can see that there is no 4th component. It has been removed. You can do the same thing by saying list 1 brackets. And this time, let's say I want to remove this component, which is at the 3rd index. I say remove the 3rd index and store it back into list 1. List 1. See, the 3rd component has been removed. So today you have learned about the new data structure that will list. You have learned how you can manipulate the list, assess the items inside the list, and how you can create them. Now good luck. See you next time.